This is the 419, brought to you by Wetro Wealth Management. At Wetro Wealth Management, it's all about relationships. The Wetro team believes in true service. You aren't speaking to chatbots. You're not passed around from advisor to advisor. The people taking your calls and setting your appointments are the same people who will help you to create a sensible financial plan. You are a part of the Wetro story, and they're proud to be a part of yours. And we're proud to have Wetro Wealth Management helping us tell the stories of great people in our area here on the 419. The 419 is hosted by Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, and me, Kevin Mullen. And this is the 419.
We have a little bit of a special episode for you today. Matt, do you agree?
I have been part of the secret, non-secret. I feel like I'm Deep Throat.
Yeah.
Listening to you and Kevin playing this inane interview.
But the funny thing is you don't read any of the emails or correspondence or texts anyway.
That's
So you didn't even know.
I'm constantly surprised.
Correct.
Yeah, I didn't even
It's
know.
You're
really
still
easy.
surprised, even
Yeah.
though the guest is sitting in front of us as we speak.
It's really easy to keep secrets from Matt.
Yeah.
Because you can just put them in a text message to Matt.
He won't
right.
read it.
And he won't read them
That's
anyway.
right.
Right.
That's
Okay.
exactly right.
So we have a little bit of, as I said, a little bit of a special episode because everyone knows, our listener knows
That's right.
that our pod is that one of us brings a guest on. It's a surprise to the other two, and we have this sort of organic, freewheeling
That's right.
conversation. Now, we're still going to have an organic, freewheeling conversation because none of us prepared.
That's right.
But it's not a surprise who our guest is, and I think once we introduce who the guest is, everyone will know why, or we'll talk about it. So our very special guest on the podcast today is Coach Tricia Cullop.
Hell yeah.
Tricia.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here.
Gretchen, I love the fact that, we knew it was Tricia.
I know.
And so the question was, are we going to, on
Pretend.
the recording, pretend?
That's why I
But you
thought the
didn't-
whole conversation was such a dumbass thing. I don't even know what you guys were
You
talking
didn't
about.
You didn't have to hide her around the corner.
Yeah. That's
I
what
wanted
mean.
to make it
She was
be
like-
truly
then she was like-
theatrical.
she was like, tell me to shh. I was
Took
like,
me back to grade school when I was in trouble.
Yeah.
Sit in that corner.
Like, should we be
Sit
a
in that
secret?
corner.
It's like, what are you at? Who, secret from whom?
So good.
Yeah.
I had the word woman written down at the
That's
top
a-
because
that's
one
one
of
of
my
the-
clues was
that's
going to
one
be
of the
that you
hot
were a woman.
And she had to write it down.
That's a great clue.
Yeah. She had to write it down. She's like, oh, I hope I don't forget this.
Oh, I got her.
Yeah.
Thanks for describing
Mark
me
that
that
down.
way.
That's it. You have any guesses? Well, it's a woman.
It's a woman.
That's
So
right.
explain to the angry / sad, bitter, and crying listeners why maybe we had to reschedule your previous pod appearance with
But also,
us.
let's talk about the talent that Coach is going to be showing here today, because the two of us are with Coach in person.
Oh, that's right. I forgot to
and
say that.
Kevin is remote on
Yes.
vacation. So a further testament to how much you mean even to these three bedopes.
Where's he on vacation?
Tennessee.
Prison.
We're in Nashville, Tennessee. I am actually, I have a unique advantage that I am doing this from my brother's recording studio.
Nice. Nice.
Is he a recording artist or just?
He is. Yeah, both him and his wife are
Wow.
full-time professional recording artists. So they have all the talent, all of the looks.
Heck yeah.
And then you guys get me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you have that vest.
Yeah, well,
Can't take that from you.
I want to hear Matt criticize someone's vest.
Yeah, you're wearing a
That's
vest,
what I want
Matt.
to hear.
Well, that was.
Oh,
let's just
okay.
start.
So
we've
We've started off on a negative note.
Yeah, which is our
because
thing.
you two are fighting as usual.
So I am super excited that Trish is
too.
in here. We've got a deep history I'm sure we'll get into. But she was supposed to be, like, I wanted her to be one of my guests. I knew, Gretchen, you were going to try and get her to be one of your guests. And then she had to go and break our hearts and make a decision that was in the best interest of her and her career, as if that matters to us at all.
Sure,
Right.
sure, checked every single box.
Yeah, except for the
Except
timing
for
of this
our
podcast.
yeah,
And the 15 people that disappointed.
yeah,
So
sure.
anyway, 16 years as the head coach at the University of Toledo. This year, big decision was made, big announcement was made. Tell us a little bit about where you're headed, where you already are, in fact, and how everything is going.
Well, lately I've been cleaning out boxes, which is not fun. But I will say,
When does that stop? You're
Yeah.
a big deal. You don't. Even this stop should have been
word to the
else.
wise. Every
Yeah.
year you should clean out your closets
Yeah.
because after 16 years, I
Yeah.
have a lot of stuff, not only in my office that I had to clean out, but also at home. And
Sure.
I definitely want to synthesize that because there is no basement in Florida in
right.
that home and a lot of less storage. So I've got to siphon it down. But to answer your question, I headed to Miami, the University of Miami, and it was a very difficult decision. After being here for 16 years, I have a lot of, I loved my team. Still
Yes.
love my team that I coached. They were joy to be around every day. I loved the people that I worked with. And so that part made it really, really difficult. And I enjoyed working at the University of Toledo. But this is an incredible opportunity career-wise to be in the ACC, which had the most teams of any women's basketball, program, more teams in the NCAA tournament than any other league in the country. So arguably the best league in the country for women's basketball. The university is a private university. It costs $93,000 a year to go to school at Miami. I would not have been able to afford that when I was growing up. It's a great school. It's a beautiful campus. I can't wait for you to visit so you can see it.
Just so everyone know that Coach just said that directly to Gretchen.
Yeah, well, I will include all of you. in
No,
that.
it's too late now. I don't want your charity.
There'll be no hurt feelings
Yeah.
on this. But competitively, they've been a great, great program.
Yeah.
Katie Meyer, who coached before me, there's a reason she was there for 19 years.
19
When a
years, good
coach
Lord.
has been there that long,
Yeah.
you know it's a great job.
Sure.
And the great thing for me is she's still on board on the staff. She's going to be helping out the athletic department. So I
Oh,
still
that's
have her
great.
treasure trove of information
Sure.
to draw from, and that made it attractive as well. So very, very difficult decision personally, but professionally, I thought it was a great decision for my career. And the one thing I will say to my friends and to the people that I worked with and to the kids that I coached, it's not goodbye. Everybody, I hope, will stay in touch with me because I made lifelong friendships here that I
Absolutely.
hope will continue to stay in touch.
Well, it's such also a shock to the system. I mean, talked to mutual friends of ours and just others in the community that were like, well, I mean, you literally get the job and like you're on a plane the next day. You're
Yeah.
packing up your office. And I was like, well, when's the going away party? And when are we going to have this send off? And when do we get to see each
the
other?
relationships that have ended in your life? They usually linger. What is the?
Yeah, we used a couple parties.
Yeah. Do they stay in my basement for a long time? Yes, they do.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I keep their pets, whatever. It's weird.
Do I pay their bills? I do.
But this is a
Just a few
unique
people.
career.
Yes.
Right? It's a unique job where, in a
Yes.
normal office setting, you give 2 weeks, 30 days, something like that. With this, it's literally by the time it's public, you're already gone.
You're knee deep.
There is an overwhelming amount of things about your life that are of tremendous interest and are not relatable to the four of us, people who have normal sort of transactional roles. So I don't know where to start. Even if we ask something that puts you on the spot, we'll edit it out. So forgive us. It's just general
fine.
interest. But when you have to be almost constantly courted. You have made what was certainly, I think, what we would consider a good program, a great program, and you've built a culture here. And those are all buzzwords, and I know they can be used all too often and sound trite, but that is true. I've never heard or been around so much excitement around a singular institution within the athletic department. That includes great football teams. Like, you build a culture in a group. So when you are taking offers, are people knocking on your door constantly? Is there a basketball LinkedIn? People are constantly pinging you in. I mean,
Yeah,
do you
how
not
does it
listen?
work?
Do you
Like,
not listen to
what's-
this during the season?
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you are a real commodity in both time and space, and there's a lot of people who can coach basketball. Not to this level, but there are a lot of people who can coach basketball, but they can't do all the things that you do. So how do you fend this off? How do you take in consideration? How do you live this life? And we need to know in 5 minutes. Cough it up, Coach.
Well, first of all, it's very kind of you to say all those things because I don't really think about it that way. I
Sure.
think about it as, I really thought I had the best mid-major job in the country. Toledo women's basketball is an incredible program, and I felt so fortunate to be here. Every day I walked through those doors, and so I didn't worry about the future. I worried about the now and how do I
Yeah.
make this program the best it can possibly be. search firms reach out to you. Normally that's how it goes. Most coaches in the country have an agent. I have an agent who didn't think I would ever move, and we both laughed that it finally happened this time.
Sure. How long have you been with that agent?
I think he was very bored because I didn't keep him very busy.
He's like, well, I guess I'll
How
call
long have you been
Tricia.
with that agent?
I hired him when I first took the job at Toledo, and I will laugh with you about why I hired him. When I took the job at Evansville, as I was leaving the interview, the AD slapped down my contract on the hood of my car and said, "Are you coming or not?" And I was 29, and I signed it furiously and said, "I am coming."
Yeah.
And when I got here, there was a few more pages to that contract, and I thought I probably should have somebody look this over.
Sure.
Yeah.
The lawyer in you, Gretchen, is probably like,
Yeah.
thank goodness
Like,
she
what?
came to her senses. But,
Yeah.
I needed somebody to make sure that I was protected,
Absolutely.
that I had thought through everything. I was a little wiser than the 29-year-old Tricia Cullop, and so
And that was 40 years ago.
it feels like forever ago.
Sure.
I will tell you that I found that contract, and I
Aw.
texted to my financial advisor and said, "It's so good that I don't make this salary now
yeah,
because
no kidding.
I was making it barely
Now, Gretchen,
paycheck
a
to
financial
paycheck."
advisor is somebody who...
Yeah. They can add and subtract, I'm assuming.
Yeah, hard to
Okay.
say.
Well, let's just say Kelly Savage got a good chuckle out of that one.
I bet.
Yeah.
But technically, people contact your agent. A search firm contacts them and says, "Does she have any interest in this?"
Yeah.
And then you respond. I'll be honest. There's very few jobs in the country that would have taken me away from here.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't say my door was getting beaten down. There's a lot of great coaches in the country.
Sure.
But I will say that this one in particular was very intriguing, and I didn't probably appreciate enough until I went on the interview. And then when I went on the interview, I was like, I'm crazy if I say
This is
no
it.
if they offer me.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if they would or not. But I will say that when the AD called to offer it, I was really excited. And then when I hung up, I had a lot of tears because of all the friendships.
Absolutely.
And I just thought instantly about, people that I would hurt. And you don't want to hurt people.
Sure.
But
Gretchen, I hope you're listening.
yeah, but the people that I care about hopefully know how much they mean to me.
Yeah.
And that those relationships will never end.
Absolutely.
As I recruited people at Toledo, and even as I recruit them at Miami and even Evansville, the one thing I always say to them is, this isn't a 2-year, 4-year, 5-year decision in some respects. This is a lifetime decision.
Yeah.
I'm always in your corner, and
Right.
I mean that. I just went out to dinner with Yolanda Richardson Swain last night and thoroughly enjoyed that with her kids. I feel old that she has 3 kids now, and and that they're sitting on my lap asking me basketball questions. I remember when Yolanda was my first recruit I signed here, and so those are the relationships in basketball that you're very fortunate to have,
Sure.
and that you treasure as a coach,
Yeah.
because long after the scores and the statistics, the relationships are the things that matter the most.
Well, pardon me.
I was looking at, I'm forced to follow the University of Miami basketball page now, which I do.
Glad you're forced.
But I saw some pictures of there was an event there, and there were pictures of you greeting new fans. I'm assuming it's like in Igniters, like the University of Toledo's Igniters type club, just long-term women's basketball fans. And the pictures, it came across in the pictures, and of course I know you, but the way that you were engaging with these people that you were meeting, it just came out of the picture about how genuine you were to be meeting them, how excited you were to recognize them as fans. And I think that that's a big part, a little bit about what Matt was talking about the building the crowd here and the atmosphere that's created. And you can deny it if you want, but you really shouldn't, because it is a very, very, there's a machine around it and all that, but a very large part of it is you.
But also,
And
the relationships aren't a given,
No,
right? I mean,
yeah.
you
And
have
so
those
what-
relationships because of you.
Yeah.
Not
And
every coach.
the
I'm sorry, Gretchen, I
question
know you were
that
going to talk the entire show.
The question that I think about a lot is, and I thought actually on the way down here to record, is what is it? Like, where did you get that? Where did you get it from? You obviously don't do it it's not a put on.
No.
It's not manufactured.
In person, you're a nightmare. So is it mostly?
You were carried up the steps here, which was weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gretchen informed me it was on the 3rd floor with no elevator,
Yeah,
so
she talks about
I prepared myself.
Yeah.
But it's
What is it?
unique.
Yeah.
Like, what is it? Like, where does it come from? Do you hone it? Do you
Well-
know that you're having that effect on people? Like, what?
Here's what I will say. Coaches in my life, in particular my high school coach, I think about the impact that he had on me. I was a skinny, awkward, girl that was growing really fast that I'm sure at times he probably thought, gosh, can she just make a basket? He helped me so much. He met me at 6:00 in the morning to work on my game before practice. When my parents were busy working, my mom was a grade school elementary teacher. My dad was a supervisor for the state highway, so they couldn't always get off work to take me on college visits. So he would take me on some. He bent over backwards to make sure that my dreams could come true. And so part of it is me wanting to pay it forward because I had people like that in my life that still to this day, I had the privilege of going over to the Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame to watch him be inducted. And I was so glad I could be there because he has done so much for me, and the least I could do was be there that day. And that was after I was announced. So the timing was tough, but it happened, and I'm so glad I could be there. But the other factor I would just say is I was very, very fortunate to have incredible parents and just so caring, and even grandparents that did things for people that no one knew about, that, if they saw someone in need, they would help them. If they could bring a smile to someone's face, they did it. And so I just think I'm just trying to pay forward what they taught me too. My parents are no longer here. I love them dearly. I miss them. But in the same vein, this is a way to kind of carry on what they embodied. And I hope I'm a fraction of what they were because they were incredible people.
Well, you're doing it.
Kevin,
I had the privilege of serving as the public address announcer for the women's basketball program at the University of Toledo the year before Tricia came in. And I still remember, Tricia, your first game and your first few games. I remember you sending a player over to the PA table to grab a microphone and thank the fans. And that was so unique. And I know that was not met with excitement from the administration at the time. But I remember them doing it, the fans responding so positively to that. And then I also vaguely remember the administration saying, "This ends here." I was told not to give the players the microphone.
Did you know that?
No.
Interesting.
And I believe, because I think I had told you at one point, like, I'm not supposed to give you the microphone. And you said, set it down and walk away.
Oh, yeah.
Where did that idea come from? Because, you talk about growing Toledo into being one of the top mid-major programs in the country, but that was really a small town, small ball thing to do. That it was not, if the goal was to feel like you as the coach and the players were bigger and better than the fans, that was not that.
That's a great story.
Well, when I was a head coach at Evansville, ironically, I was in a tournament where we actually played Toledo. Toledo had just beaten Duke at the time, so they were ranked, and my team actually had a chance to play them. But the meaning of this story is that the Colorado State coach at the time was Tom Collin. He is now married to the Baylor coach, Nikki Collin. But Tom taught me a valuable lesson, and that was that, number one, I came out of the locker room and we had lost to Colorado State, and he said, "Tricia, why do you still go in the locker room?" And I go, "What are you talking about?" And he said, "Just don't go in there anymore. It's not worth it." He goes, "You're going to say things that you may regret the next day."
Meaning your players' locker room?
Yeah.
Oh.
He said, after the game, don't go in there anymore. He's like, you're going to praise someone that after you watch film, later you're probably going to say, I probably shouldn't have praised him that much. Or you may get on someone, you may watch film and say, something triggered what happened to them, and now you're going to regret that, and they're never going to forget you said that to them. He said, so why don't you do what we do? And I looked up in the stands, and his kids were just all over the stands, thanking people, engaging with them. And so if you noticed at Toledo, we never went in the locker room after the game. Our kids were encouraged to go in the stands and thank people for coming, meet them. Our kids who got beckoned to media went right away. And so our media never had to wait on us. And so they had the opportunity to get their interviews done, get home, see their families.
Yeah.
And most importantly, I got my holy grail of film immediately and got to go home and get to bed an hour earlier because I had graded our film and I was ready to then critique our team the next day after we'd all slept on it.
Yeah.
Later, I had a sports psychologist tell me that is the best thing you could have ever done because no one will learn when they're fatigued. They don't want to listen to critique when you're fatigued, but after you've had a night's rest, you're way more open to any kind of critique and learning. And it'll sink in better. And so, going to the mic and with our kids engaging, I thought that really went over well in the first few years at Toledo, and we just kept doing it. And I felt like when we would recruit and we would sell that, I would always tell people, we have 4,000 people in the stands that are helping us win games. But that's 4,000 people, what I would tell to parents, that can help you get a job when you're done.
Yeah.
And so it's not just about sports. It's also about what's beyond that. And you never know whose hand your daughter's going to shake
Sure.
that might change their life and open a door that we can never open for them, but they can do it on their own in those stands.
Go ahead.
No, the whole show's about you. So
So rude.
Well, good. I'll jump in.
Okay,
Tricia,
Kevin, go
of
ahead.
all of the players that you've had,
Pick your favorite.
No.
I've
least favorite.
got
Way to
to
send me to
Least favorite.
And least favorite, and where does she live now?
I've got to believe that Nama Shafir has got to be one of the most unique stories that a coach could have, and a program and a community could have. Where did you find her? And how did that relationship, and maybe back up, and for folks that aren't familiar, maybe tell us a little bit about who Nama is, and then how you found her and what brought her to Toledo.
Okay. Nama was an Orthodox Jewish girl that when I first took the job, there was no point guard on the team. That's like going into a football team and having no quarterback. So, and at the time they were redoing Savage Arena. My office was in the football suite. So every day I could look down and watch them working and hope it would get finished quickly. But my office was temporary. So every night I used to laugh because I could see the lights on the bridge downtown because I was in there so late every night making calls, just trying to find a point guard. And at the time, sometimes within the state school system, you're slow to hire your assistants. So you're a one-man band for a while. So I was making calls till midnight every night and then getting up, and I was back in the office at 8 o'clock every morning. And we found 2 point guards. One was Nama Shafir, and one was a girl out of Australia that I swear every time I talked to her, I felt like I was talking to Shrek's girlfriend. I had a great accent. But Nama, her handlers basically, and her family basically told me, she's an Orthodox Jewish girl, so she can only eat kosher food. Do you know anything about kosher? Which I laughed and said, sure, I know about pickles and hot dogs.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was so in-depth, which I had to do a quick study on the internet about. And I had to learn about the fact that she could not ride in a motorized vehicle from Friday sundown to Saturday
Sabbath.
sundown for the Sabbath. And so we had to do a real quick dive into how can we make her lifestyle work in Toledo. And that's where I became really good friends with Lynn Nussbaum. Obviously, she educated me on the Jewish life and especially the Orthodox Jewish life. And we slowly just found a way to make it work. And so Nama Shafir was a blessing to us because not only was she a point guard, she was an best point guard I've ever coached, probably, hands down. And I will say Sophia Wired gave her a run for her money. And I love Soph dearly. But Nama was so selfless, so talented, and yet scored 40 points in the championship of the WNIT, and then had to walk home because it was the Sabbath and couldn't do an interview. And so, we got more media coverage because the next day she had to walk back to the arena to do
Wow.
it. But what a joy. And someone that I will always treasure the lessons, because not only did I learn basketball from her, I learned how to appreciate people who are very different than you. That she'd never had bacon, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
Because of
It's a life
her,
not worth living.
Yeah, we teased her about it, and she would always say, "But I have so many better things." But I just appreciated the fact that she embraced her teammates who were very different, had different religious beliefs, backgrounds, you name it, and yet we embraced her too. And I think our team learned a lot about life beyond basketball and when they graduated because of learning about this situation. I think the Allie Clifton and the Lisa Johnson summer can tell you story upon story. Courtney Ingersoll of being Nama's teammate and what that meant and what we all learned from it.
Is
So
she
I've got-
back in Israel now? I'm sorry, Matt.
No, she is. In fact,
She has two
whenever-
little kids now, or one?
She does. She
Yeah.
has 2 and is married, and her husband's in the military. So obviously when everything was going on in the Gaza Strip, not only were we worried about our current player
Absolutely.
at Toledo, but I had coached 2 other Israeli players, and so I was in touch with them quite a bit to make sure they were okay. And Nama was very nervous because her husband is in the military. So that was very, and still is, a very touchy situation.
Forgive the awkward transition from something that is really meaningful back to basketball. But what was more natural to you? I guess I have 2 questions. What was more natural to you, recruiter or a technician?
I came up as an assistant, being a recruiter, but loved the game so much that I studied it like crazy.
Okay.
But the one thing I did learn in becoming a head coach is that you hire people who complement you.
Sure.
And you don't have to be the master of everything. You can hire people who are really good at things that complement you and make your staff better. And so that's what I've always tried to do. And it's as I've gotten older, I've noticed that I don't have to be the voice on everything.
Yeah.
When I was younger, I thought, boy, they need to hear my voice all the time.
Sure.
The older and wiser that you get, you hire people who are really good in certain areas, and the players actually enjoy hearing different voices.
Certainly.
And learning from different people, and it just makes your whole staff even stronger.
What does a typical week look like if you're working towards a Saturday game and you're not recruiting? How I know there's all kinds of timelines and things. How much are you actually in the gym with your players? Are they watching film? Are you?
What's a week?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What
that's
does
a
it look
question.
like?
Well, I'm a big believer in film, and keep in mind that most weeks you've got 2 games.
That's right.
So
Wednesdays
you
too. Right?
usually got one midweek. So typically, let's just work off of what I'm about to do. So we're about to play. Well, let's say what I just did. So our conference games would be on Saturday. So Sunday would be a day off for the players, but a prep day for the coaching staff. So we would all be home watching film. My assistants are all assigned scouts, so they would be working on their scout. I would be self-scouting us, so I would be tearing down the film and making good and bad highlights to show our team. I always believe the phrase, it's never as good as it seems, it's never as bad as it
Sure.
seems. The
Yeah.
truth's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So even if we lost, we would give out awards on things that we thought they did well. And I would always ask them, do you want to watch the good or bad first?
Yeah, sure.
And of course, there were like groans when it came to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I think they came to enjoy the fact that we were working towards something better
Yes.
than just the score of the game.
Yeah, certainly.
And so that Monday would be a longer day, maybe 2 hours on the court, maybe a half an hour of film. But we would start with 15 minutes of film of the previous game. Then we would practice for 2 hours. Then we'd come back in and watch personnel of the next game. The next game, we would taper off our time a little bit and continue to watch a little bit of film. So we might go an hour and a half and watch still 20 minutes of film of the opponent we're going to play on Wednesday. But I would say Tuesday will be a lot lighter because you want to have legs. You can't make shots if you don't have legs.
100%.
Thursday would be a little light because we just played a game. So we might go harder with the kids who didn't play as much against your practice guys. And then the kids who played a lot lighter on the court and then film. And then Friday would be somewhat light because you've got a game on Saturday and then you hit repeat. But in between all that, your staff's out recruiting, working on scouting reports. I mean, it's a race to see how much you can get done in a week.
I don't mean a specific individual, obviously, but who is the most difficult person to coach?
Someone that doesn't embrace coaching, someone that doesn't like to hear feedback, someone that doesn't have a good work ethic.
Gretchen is now pointing at me.
Yeah.
I keep trying to be his mentor.
When are you going to be remote? Please go on. I have to listen to this monthly.
I think what's tough is when you have someone that thinks their ability is not where it is. And so maybe they think they're a different position than what you see them as being. But that's why we try to be really transparent. We see you as this position.
Yeah.
And you can always work toward this other one. We see you with this amount of minutes, and you can always work toward this one, and we'll give you a plan to get there. But I love players who embrace that and say, you know what, you're right. That's where I am.
Sure.
And kids that like to hear feedback, good and bad. No one likes to hear the bad.
Right.
Even coaches. End of
Sure.
season
Human being.
reviews, they're
Yeah.
not fun.
Yeah.
It's like going to the dentist.
Yeah.
But I do think it's a necessary part if you want to be great.
Do you play? Are there a lot of girls that are playing what you would consider to be their wrong position in high school, or you're trying to shift them to something? You see them as something different. Does that happen a lot?
Oddly good question.
I think in the recruiting landscape, you hear a lot of kids say, I think I'm a 3, meaning I'm a wing player, and really their foot speed, they can't guard that.
Yeah.
And so you're going to have to be tricky in how you play them at that if you recruit them to be that. We try to be really honest about, hey, this is where we see you. You're welcome to go pursue that somewhere else, but here's where we see you if you're interested in now Miami, and we hope you'll join us because we think you'd be perfect. What we try to do is show them film on this is
How
where
you
we
play.
see you.
Yeah.
This is how you fit in our system, and we hope they agree.
As you make the transition to Miami, there's a couple of things that have come into play in the last few years of your time at Toledo with NIL, with transfer portal. Maybe from my perspective, I feel like those are at a different level at Miami than they were at Toledo. Maybe a bigger factor. And maybe I'm wrong on that one, but tell me how does that game change for you coaching for the University of Miami versus what you saw at the University of Toledo?
And explain NIL first before you answer.
So NIL is name, image, likeness. So players now can benefit from their name, image, likeness. So, they can sell an autograph. They can go out and be sponsored. I just had a player, I have two players. I'm coaching twins that just signed a deal with a company. They're very well known in the NIL space. Probably do it better than most people in the country. And so I'll be honest, I'm learning from them.
Sure.
Talk about a coach tutorial. I sat and had lunch with them the other day, and I was so amazed with all the things they're doing in that space. So I think
it's complicated.
It is very complicated and it's tricky. Obviously, most schools in the country, including Toledo, we had a collective. I think at the level that I'm at now, I think those dollars are a lot deeper.
Yeah.
And that's a conversation that recruits want to know about. Probably in that first or second conversation is, what does it look? What's that landscape look like? You can't say, "Hey, you're going to make this here," but you can say, "This is what players have made here."
Right. The opportunity we think is in this ballpark.
Exactly. And so I think it's a big part of recruiting at the BCS level, and it's weird to say Power 4 now instead of Power 5.
Sure.
But at the Power 4 level, I would say
Gretchen, do you know why you're laughing?
It is a big part of what we do.
Because they're better.
But I will say that's something that I'm learning a lot about is what's the going rate for a point guard, a two guard, a three guard, a four, or a five. I'm learning a lot about that, and I think every day.
Do you like having to have conversations like that about a going rate? I know you're in the world now, so it doesn't, you can't, there's not much that's going to change it at this point, but.
Philosophically speaking.
Yeah.
Philosophically, I would say,
because you didn't come up in that system.
It's funny because that's one of the first questions that players had for me when I took the job was, do you believe in this?
Yeah.
And I said, yes. And I said, because I've always believed it was wrong that jerseys were being sold with people's names on them and numbers, and those players weren't benefiting.
Pictures.
When you see some of them really having a hard time getting by, people think because
and they can't have jobs.
Right. Now, back then, we couldn't. I mean, there's so many things I couldn't do that are allowed now. Some things that I wish were in place. There are care hours now where you can only do things with players for an 8-hour window. And gosh, I remember we would lose, and Coach Dunn would be like, "Suit back up." We'd go back at the gym until 1 a.m. There's good rules in place now that protect the student athletes. Now, has it gotten out of control with collectives and NIL? Yeah, I think it has, but I think it's going to be hard to reel it back in.
Absolutely.
I think if they let the horses out of the gate, and now pulling them back in is impossible. So now we have to learn what works. And I do think that, our new president of the NCAA is doing the best that he can. He kind of got handed all this.
Absolutely.
And I enjoyed listening to him at our ACC meetings. Charlie Baker is a very gifted person in this space, but I do think there's challenges everywhere at all levels in this space.
Let's go back. I want to talk a little bit about, obviously, the future of women's sports in general and sort of the time that we're in now. But I also wanted, before we went to that, I wanted to go back to little Tricia Cullop.
Kevin and Gretchen are insistent on starting all these interviews in the middle.
This drives Matt crazy because he wants to go chronologically and start from your birth.
Like how time.
And then.
This is like one of those movies that jumps around.
Yeah,
exactly.
that everyone complains about. It's like Memento.
This is a flashback. Okay,
there you go.
Now we're in the flashback. So,
Wait, Kevin,
did you play basketball in grade school?
They didn't have a team.
Indiana, right?
Mm-hmm. Ironically, it's hard to believe in Indiana, right? But so a friend of mine and I played recess basketball all the time against the boys. I remember, laugh about this. I lived way out in the country, but I had a moped, so I would ride my moped 2 or 3 miles into town just to play pickup games.
What age did you become 6 feet tall? If you remember.
I grew really fast in the 5th and 6th grades. So by the time I got to junior high, I remember my
Just
mom.
this giant gal out in the sticks with a moped.
Yeah.
They must have been fighting them off.
Yeah. Now, ironically, obviously, I've had to siphon down all these things that I own. My childhood will be in a dump in Toledo somewhere because I've had to throw away so much stuff to get down to Miami. But I laughed. I found a picture of me riding that moped with my dog on it. My dog had its paws on the front, riding with me.
Did he have a helmet on?
Yeah. I just remember one time it saw a bunny. And we wrecked because it jumped off, and it was a bad day.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. That's got to be one of the most hillbilly stories I've ever heard in my entire life.
Hey, I was very much a country girl.
But in her biopic, it's going to be a dog
My
with like
dog jumped-
goggles
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
and like riding on the.
Yeah, that will be the next You by ESPN.
Yeah,
will be
exactly.
Tricia Cullop's
Exactly.
bunny slaughtering dog from a moped.
So
Kevin, you have your hand
Go
up
ahead,
in our
Kevin.
tiny screen.
I
a lot to take
want
in.
nothing to do with that ESPN 30 for 30.
30 for 30.
Nothing to do with that.
Yep. It's the modern Wizard of Oz. She's just driving around out there in a moped.
Hey, I had to get to a game somehow.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
There was not a lot happening
Your
out in
folks
the
were
country.
athletes? Or tell me a little bit about...
Yeah, how did you know you wanted to play basketball?
My dad encouraged my mom and dad. My mom came up during the pre-Title IX era, so she
Sure.
she did a lot of what I did: pickup games,
Yeah.
baseball, softball. She loved all the sports, but didn't have the opportunities because there just weren't any. And so my mom actually played 6-on-6 at a junior college nearby, Vincennes University. My dad actually played on the men's team for a little bit, I think on the JV.
Okay.
That was their extent of college exposure.
I know this is an inane question, but out of curiosity, how tall are they?
My mom was about 5'8", 5'9". My
Okay.
dad was about 6'2".
Okay.
As I got older, he would always straighten up near me to make sure he was taller. But
Yeah.
but anyway, they both love sports
Okay.
and encouraged all of us, my two sisters and I, from a very young age to participate in whatever our hearts
Sure.
desired, because my mom didn't have those opportunities. She wanted us to have them.
Yeah.
And my dad was an incredible person that drug us out in the yard and
Sounds
worked
like
on our
it.
shots and
Yeah.
our ball handling.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
And tireless,
Yeah.
sounds like, from what you
Yeah.
said. Talk to me about your sisters.
My two sisters, Tracy and Tammy, ironically, are a lot shorter than me. My oldest sister is probably 5'4". My
Sounds
middle
like you just
sister,
said 5'4".
I did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My middle sister Tammy's about 5'8".
Okay.
My oldest sister lives in my hometown. She's a banker.
Okay.
She works at a credit union, and then
I'm
my
not sure you mentioned what is the hometown.
Bicknell. She lives in
of
she
course.
lives in
Everyone's heard of
Burrsville,
Bicknell.
Metropolis.
Yeah, the bedroom community of Brickville.
Yep. Yeah. And then my middle sister lives in Tequila, Georgia, so
Okay.
northeast of Atlanta.
Okay.
And she works in a company that makes cleaning supplies
Okay.
that you would find in Home Depot.
Sure. Okay.
So she is in marketing.
So you played in high school and then got recruited to go to
Purdue?
Purdue. Mm-hmm. And is that when you played for Lynn Dunn?
Yes. I had a great opportunity to play for a Hall of Famer.
You hit the ground running there. I mean, it sounds like you're from a smaller town, and now you are in a Big Ten atmosphere, and you were like Bambi on ice, or you were an animal right away. Tell me about that experience.
Well, I played for a team that I didn't know it at the time, and no one did at the time, but there were two Kodak All-Americans. They called them Kodak then. They were sponsored by Kodak. But two All-Americans were on our team that were getting ready to be named that in the next few years.
Okay.
We really incredibly talented squad. I
Okay.
was fortunate that the recruiting class I came in was ranked #1 in the country, not because of me. My teammates were
We can edit
extremely
it out
talented.
because of you. It sounds like
No.
what you're saying. Yep.
You can edit that, but I'll be the first to tell you it wasn't because of me. But we helped Purdue win its first ever Big Ten championship.
Wow.
My first 2 years, I am very humbled to tell you that I was not a star.
Okay.
I was a role player that played 5 to 10 minutes, and then my junior and senior year, I played a lot more.
Okay.
But I think it helped me as a coach to go through all the roles.
Sure.
From being the last person on
Absolutely.
the bench to the middle to, because now I can relate to all those players that are going through those roles
How often were your parents at the games?
as much as possible.
Hell yeah.
And
Cool.
Purdue was about a 2.5-hour drive from my hometown, so they came quite frequently. And I'll be honest, they came to Toledo as much as they could too.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why I thought it was fun to take the Evansville job is I would have at least two people that weren't yelling at me in the stands.
Yeah.
My parents.
Yeah.
That was an hour away.
Well, that's great. What is your advice for people that don't play basketball, that are tall, that are always asked if they play basketball? What would your response be? Just for people, if people like that exist.
Hypothetically.
Why?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it depends on who's asking and how you can benefit.
That's excellent. God damn, this lady's got it.
She's got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Let me go back to Purdue.
Let's go
Tricia
back to the
Cullop.
middle of your life again.
Well, look, Matt. You can criticize all you want.
It's
I
not
think it
me.
makes
This is how
sense
time works.
to start with where people might know someone from, and then let's go back and figure out how we got there. But whatever. So, what would Coach Tricia Cullop from the University of Miami tell Tricia Cullop from college? What would you tell you as a player?
Regrettably, that's a good question.
I think you would, if you met me as a freshman in college, you would know I was a perfectionist. I wanted everything to be perfect, and I probably beat myself up worse than any coach could ever beat myself up. I really wanted to please the people that were playing with me and the people I was playing for. And I think if I had let that load go a lot earlier, I would have been a much better player. I think as I got older, that got easier. But early in my career, I came from a small town, and things came easier. When I got to college, it was a little tougher, playing against great competition. But I think that would be the thing that I could have benefited from the most.
I have no concept of how you're able to tune out the white noise, right? I mean, there are people yelling at you all the time. You are responsible for 13 to 15 other people all expecting different things and wanting pieces of you, right? Can you talk a little bit, and at the risk of putting you on the spot, your growth or how you were able to develop that sort of harder shell, or however you articulate it? I mean, that is a tough gig, and you are in the spotlight. And how does this not break your heart every night?
Well, I think I'm sensitive to it for the players. I don't really listen to it if it's about me. I actually find that humorous sometimes.
And you've always been that way?
As a coach, pretty much.
Okay.
I think you have to block it out as a coach, or you're going to cry every night.
Can you hear people yelling out individual things during the games to you?
Not very often.
Okay.
Are you threatening her?
No, I just wonder. I always wondered that. I never asked you that.
When I first took the Evansville job, maybe there were about 200 people in the stands.
Okay.
But as I came to Toledo, and even as I was coaching at Evansville, I think I learned how to block it out, because we would play Missouri State, who at the time had between 7,000 and 8,000 people at the games.
Wow.
Now, they had a group called the Blue Hair that used to, I'm sorry, Bear Hair. That's what they were called.
Yeah. Blue Hair is Gretchen's group.
I think it's my group.
Yeah.
Bear Hair, their job was to yell at the opposing coach the whole game. And I think there I learned my toughness.
I guess so.
If I don't block them out, I can't
Yeah.
coach the game. Now I found it humorous in the MAC as I would go to schools that the band took on that charge, and they would, and it was fun to not listen to them and just block them out. If you're a college coach and you pay attention to chat boards or people in the stands, you'll never succeed.
Yeah, I believe
And so
you.
you do have to learn how to have thick skin and just let it go, and sometimes laugh it off, because it is definitely something you got to work through.
Go ahead, Kev.
I think it's hard to not talk about thick skin from a women's basketball coach and not ask about Caitlin Clark. There's been so much criticism of her transition from the NCAA to the WNBA. If you had a chance to sit down with her, what would you tell her, or what are your thoughts on the transition and whether or not the criticism is warranted?
Well,
Give us some background on the criticism. I guess I don't know if that's uniformly understood.
Well, I think, everybody wants the Fever to win every game now.
Yeah, sure.
And my college coach, ironically, is the GM of the Fever
Oh,
now.
okay.
So, I think what people have to realize is the Fever has a young roster. And so they're going to get better even this season. I think they've already gotten better since the beginning of the season, as I've caught pieces of games. And these new players are learning how to play together when they've been used to playing with their college teams.
Yeah.
And even the Fever team from last year has new people on the roster. That takes a long time to develop, and they didn't have a long off season to do that. Their training camp is very short. It's not like a college off season where the kids come in for several weeks and they have time to bond and all of that. No, it's your college season ends. There's a draft. And then very shortly, you're sent to training camp, and then all of a sudden games are happening. So you're learning on the fly.
Yeah.
And so I think people being patient is a big thing. People being patient with the Fever coach as she learns how to use these players in an effective way. I think I get more frustrated with that because, yes, they're a really talented roster, but they're young and they're still learning. I think we all have Caitlin Clark to thank. There's a media storm of interest in women's basketball right now, and she helped.
The viewership.
She was the driver of a lot of that, and I'm grateful because I remember the years where it was bleak.
Yeah,
and I remember when the NCAA negotiated our TV contracts, and we were blended with all the other sports, which in a way we are still, but they couldn't tell us our value, and because those contracts were intertwined with softball, baseball, volleyball. And so when they said, what is women's basketball worth? They couldn't tell us.
Yeah.
They said, no, women's basketball loses money, don't ask for more. When we did the evaluation during COVID, when all the things were thrown in the media of, it was very apparent things weren't the same in the NCAA tournament. Then all of a sudden there was an evaluation that said, no, women's basketball worth a lot more than that. Guess when our TV contracts were due to be renegotiated? This year. And so what did Caitlin help us do? Those contracts are a lot better now. And Juju Watkins, we can think a lot of people around the country, but those contracts are a lot better now. And so many girls and so many women's teams will benefit because of that. But also, how many sellouts have we seen in the WNBA now that weren't happening even a year ago?
Yeah, it's amazing.
And so I'm thrilled because women's basketball is in the forefront. The women's Final Four outdrew the men's Final Four in
Weren't the
TV
practices
ratings.
selling out, like the practice squad games?
Not only did they outdraw the women's basketball Final Four outdrew any basketball event last year. We're talking about the NBA men's college basketball Final Four. That's incredible. That's never happened in the history of our sport. And so you look at women's basketball in its infancy compared to men's basketball. And so for us to do that now is incredible. And we're all cheering for men's basketball too. That's what people don't realize. We're in this together. But we are thrilled to see women's basketball in the limelight now because we work just as hard. And I'm just really excited. For her, going back to your question, Kevin, I would say let's be patient with her. Let's be patient with that team. And let's see how they do by the end of the year, because I think we're going to be thrilled with the progression of that team. And I hope she's patient with herself.
Sometimes it's hard to decipher, that negativity about, especially after that first game.
Yeah.
Some of those naysayers are people that didn't
watch the sport.
They don't watch the sport, or they don't want, Caitlin Clark was like
or
the
just
best player
mad,
coming out of
period.
college. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they're like, see, women's sports isn't that good. What are you guys all talking? You know what I mean? It's just, it's
There's people that
a little
think
bit
the earth
silly.
is flat, so
Right.
we don't spend a lot of time.
Right.
I guess, Coach, who's on your Mount Rushmore of coaches? And it can be obviously outside of the basketball realm as well.
Yeah, I think obviously Pat Summitt was
Yeah.
one. I loved her. I met her a few times and just was in awe. I just think she just exuded class.
Absolutely.
And I love the fact that she knew everybody's names.
Yeah.
She was so thoughtful. I went to one of her workouts, and I appreciated the fact that she came over. It was a summer workout. I just wanted to see how they did things. And she came over and sat beside me after it was over with and said, "What can I help you with?"
Wow.
And that hit me of, I hope I'm that kind to people when they come to my practices. I hope that I can help people in that way, because that really made a big mark on me.
Clearly.
Obviously, I'm so happy with what Dawn Staley's doing.
Sure.
She's kind of, her style's very different, but yet very fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love how she engages with the fans. And if you look at the fan base at South Carolina before she got there,
Yeah, okay.
and what they've done now, she's made basketball, women's college basketball fun and cool and hip.
She's got good outfits too.
Yeah. But, and how different is that than
Yeah.
that style? But it still works because
Yeah,
it's her
absolutely.
style.
Yeah, right.
I would think
And a
those,
great point guard in herself, by the way.
exactly.
Yeah.
I think those two in particular would be on a Mount Rushmore
Okay.
for me.
So as you are preparing to leave now Toledo, not for good, but more permanently, move down to your new house, what are sort of your final messages? Do you have a message for the new coach?
Was the letter you're leaving in the desk?
Yeah, and I'd tell a little bit about that story because it was
Yeah.
such a nice story. She did do that. Is that why you're
Oh,
saying
no,
that?
I didn't know
Yeah.
that.
I did.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
forgive me. I didn't.
That's okay. No, I tell you what, I was cleaning out my office and I knew I needed to, because I knew Brian Blair was going to move pretty quickly. And so I needed to be kind and get my office cleaned out, because I knew they would have to hit the ground running too. So as I was carrying out my last box, I sat it down, grabbed some stationery, and just wrote a note, not knowing who the new coach was going to be, just to say, I hope you love this job as much as I did.
wonderful.
And if I can ever help you in the future, here's my phone number.
Right.
You are going to love this job.
Yeah.
And, it wasn't a long note, but it was simply a kind of a reach out to say, I'll help you in any way I can, because this is an incredible place.
Yeah.
And for the people here, I would just say, I wish I would have had the time to thank everybody personally. That's the hard part about these transitions, is that the portal's only open so long. There's all these
right.
players available, but yet you had to hit the ground running. So you say yes, but then you got to go.
That's right.
And you don't necessarily want it to be that way. There's so many people I wish I could hug one last time or go say thank you to, because my career here, I was so enriched by all the people that I worked with daily, the players. I mean, I can go on and on about those players. I love them, but I always will. But also, and even the incoming kids that I recruited that we never got a chance to coach, I talked to them on the phone and said, I hope you stay, because you're going to love it, just like I did. And I'm glad they did. I don't have really any advice for Jenny other than just to remind her how lucky she is. This place she will love it. I know she probably already does, and she's a very gifted coach. She'll be fine. I would just, to the people that I'm leaving behind, I just want to say thank you. I was blessed from day one, and I will always be grateful for how well everybody always treated me here. Even the people that had advice from the stands on how I could coach a little better. I'm grateful they made me better. And I will always be a Toledo fan.
Will we see a University of Miami, University of Toledo home and home?
I don't know about that, because I'll be honest, I don't want those emotions with the people that I coach. Now, down the road, when some of the players that I've coached have graduated, there's a possibility of that. What I would love more than anything is to maybe even have a Toledo night in our stands in Miami for anyone. There's a lot of people that have
great
That
idea.
would be a
retired.
fun
A lot of
idea.
people live in Florida.
There's a lot of people that have already reached out to me that have summer homes that have said, or even winter homes, and they've said, hey, we want to come to some of your games. I would love for all those people to please stop by and see me, because I would love for them to come to a game, and I'd love to see them.
Well, and there's another Northwest Ohio guy that's coaching the men's program as well.
Yeah,
right?
I
So
had a
it's-
good talk with Larinaga. He used to be at Bowling Green. Obviously, I told him I was at the better school. But he and I laughed about some things about the MAC. Obviously, he knows the Savage family really well, and that's kind of a cool tie-in that he and I both came from this area.
Coach, thank you so much. I appreciate you more than I could probably ever tell you.
Hey, and
Well, thanks for not trying, Kevin. What a real character.
No, no. All right.
So
let's
I'm
do
not
this.
even going to bother.
He's on vacation.
No. Let's do this. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I have so many memories of my life, of my career, of my family that involve you. Right?
Wow.
I remember living in Texas, being away from home, and getting a text message from you saying, "Hey, the university's coming to Dallas. Can you make it out?"
Yeah.
And I've got a photo of one of the first people ever holding my daughter is you.
Yeah.
In
I remember
Dallas.
that. And then we got to see her announce.
Man,
At the game.
let me
That
tell you
was
what.
cool.
One of the hardest things I've ever had to do as a dad is not start crying when you came over to give my daughter a high five after the starting lineup. And I was just like, this is like one of the proudest moments of my announcing career.
Well, she did a good job.
I have.
Her mom is great.
I have at home. Her mom is wonderful. I have at home a WNIT championship ring, and I
Steal
know
it?
why and how I got that. And I am so grateful for you for that, because
You deserved it.
well, thank you. I mean, I really felt like it was a full team, full community effort, and for you to recognize the announcer as being a part of that, as somebody who loves what I do and feels like it's a big deal, for you to say, yeah, no, that was a big deal, and to recognize the hard work and dedication that goes into that one little role, it meant a lot to me, and it still means a lot to me, and it's a story that I have told time and time again. But I don't know if I've ever had a chance to tell you how much that meant to me.
That's sweet, Kevin.
Wow.
kidding.
And so I appreciate it. I'm so excited for you. I've never been more excited and upset.
Simultaneously.
Then I'm just like, son of a.
Yeah.
But no, super excited. And if your announcer ever gets laryngitis or you want to take him out
He
by the
can
knees.
learn the roster real
I haven't
quick.
even met my announcer yet, so I'm anxious to meet him.
Kevin, stay on
good.
the screen, and we're going to take a picture with you on the screen with us behind
perfect.
it.
So
Okay.
that sounds great.
Well, we're so appreciative that you could make
Absolutely.
time to meet with us. I'm on behalf of all the people that you didn't get a chance to see. We definitely want to thank you for all of your contributions to the city. And this thing that struck me as you were talking about the lessons that you've learned from people, I'm sure there's countless people here that could say the same thing about you and what they've
Absolutely.
learned by watching you and listening to you and your leadership and your dedication to your students. So thank you very much. We appreciate you.
Thank
We
you.
love you.
Thank you.
Huge thanks to Tricia Cullop for joining us on the 419. We certainly appreciate everything she's done for our community and her leadership throughout her time as the head coach at the University of Toledo. We hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as we did, and we hope you'll come back for more 419. The 419 is brought to you by Wetro Wealth Management. For Gretchen DeBacker, Matt Killam, I'm Kevin Mullen. We'll see you back here next time on the 419.